in this honorable house, and I stand here proudly to represent the APNU plus AFC coalition. I join with my colleagues in congratulating you, Mr. Speaker, on your appointment to this noble house. Based on your acceptance speech, I have every faith that you will be a just and fair speaker. Mr. Speaker, permit me to express my gratitude to first and foremost thank my Creator for all of His mercies and continued blessings, my ever-supportive family, my two little angels, Simran and Sanjana, my earthly God, my parents, Vidya and Rohan Chandan, my strong network of solid and genuine friends, and proudly the leadership and the membership of my party for affording me this opportunity to serve, especially the leader of the coalition, Brigadier David Granger, leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, the General Secretary of the party that I proudly represent, Amna Ali, and Dr. Mark Curtin. Permit me, Mr. Speaker, to offer my sincerest commiserations to the families of Joel and Isaiah Henry, Hare Singh, and Pretty Paul Hargobin. I want to reiterate the loud calls for justice and for swift and impartial investigations. Mr. Speaker, I hope that my colleagues on the other side of the House understand the critical connection between public security and they ensure that justice is delivered to those families and answers are given to the people of this great nation. Not only answers must be given in a timely, fair, and unbiased manner. Anyone who thinks that the diabolical execution of Joel and Isaiah Henry and the murder of Hare Singh can be swept under the proverbial carpet does not have a basic clue about public security. Mr. Speaker, if the pain, the anguish, and the hurt of the citizenry is not settled or adequately addressed, it will forever linger, and it will be a constant threat to public security. I urge the other side of the House to use all the weight of the state to deliver justice to these families. I plead with you, do it with the same vigor you're hunting down your political opponents. Mr. Speaker, before I make my contribution to the 2020 budget debate, I wish to put on record my intention to fully represent the people. As a legislator, I intend to serve the good people of our beloved Guyana without fear or favor. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2020 arguably is a payback budget. It is a budget for the boys. Those who bankrolled the PPP's campaign have been heavily rewarded, while the ordinary man has been left empty-handed. Mr. Speaker, this budget betrays Guyanese. Budget 2020 is deformed, defective, deceptive, divisive, and disingenuous. It is truly, as my colleagues before me have laid out, a D-grade budget. Not even a C-, a D-grade budget. This budget, Mr. Speaker, not only lacks preparation and vision, it lacks strategic approach, foresight, and clarity. The dark and diverse interests that were organized to install this government are smiling at the bounty that Budget 2020 has brought them. But the policemen and women, our soldiers, our nurses, our teachers, our doctors, our public servants have been cast away by the wayside. Nothing but a little bit of sparse crumbs for them. Monies are talked about, Mr. Speaker, but the budget is devoid of increases for our hard-working officers. Nothing! Our security men have been kicked to the proverbial curb. These same hard-working security men and women are now being called to run up and down Georgetown, west coast of Berbice, and elsewhere to break into people's homes, to stomp on people's constitutional rights, and the list goes on. This 2020 budget is thick on talk, but short on plans. It is a compendium of hastily put together measures, Mr. Speaker. Where is the plan for our safety, the security of our people? This budget is not only weak, Mr. Speaker, it is woeful. For the last 5 years, the Granger-led administration provided the good life. What this PPP administration is providing to the people is nothing but the good lie. Lies and lies and more lies.
Honorable member, I think earlier today at the beginning I spoke about on parliamentary language and I did
guided, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, from the very second this government was installed on August 2nd, on this most regrettable day, the country's security immediately reverted to pre-2015 low. I wish to posit that there can be no guarantee of security when the people are doubtful whether the government installed is the government they voted for. That is why we must clear all doubts with an immediate hearing of the petition. Every citizen in every village, in every region, is entitled to the same protections and guarantees accorded under the laws of our country. Might I remind you that the Ghana Police Force is charged with protecting our people, our citizens. They must protect our life, liberty, and security. And they cannot and they must not be selective in protecting our people. Look at what has happened over the last couple of days in West Berbice. Mr. Speaker, you heard from my colleague that senior officers were heard instructing the police to target a woman in a green dress. This woman, Mr. Speaker, was standing on her bridge in a street, and we'll readily provide the evidence. This is not hearsay. The police must be called out. Where were they when buses were being stormed? Where were they when our citizens were attacked? What we have seen, Mr. Speaker, is a total disregard to the citizens' rights and a complete failure on the part of the police to maintain law and order. We are therefore witnessing a pattern of threats to public security, which is creating an environment of fear, discontent, and a total loss of confidence in the security sector. Mr. Speaker, there are growing concerns about the indiscriminate use of the military to supplement the role of the police. We all know, Mr. Speaker, that traditionally, dire emergency situations have to emerge, and the police must be seen as incapable of managing the situation before the military is activated. The military has a different type of training for internal security situations. We urge careful management of this type of operation. This means that appropriate training must be provided to the police so that they can be better equipped to de-escalate threats of social unrest. Mr. Speaker, there has been the recent inconsistent processes relative to the detention of suspects by the police. We have noted, and we have noted clearly, that in the case of allegations made against GCOM officials, those persons have been held beyond the 72-hour statutory limit. While in the case of persons accused of gruesome, barbaric, and horrific murders, the suspects have been released within 72 hours or thereabout. We call on the police, you must respect due process and ensure consistency in your actions. Mr. Speaker, as we examine some of the events which have unfolded since August 2nd, these do not augur well for public security. There has been the complete breakdown, and our citizens have not felt this insecure since the dark days of the PPP. Let us examine some of these various sordid events. Public servants have been sent home with no explanation. Most of them are the sole breadwinners in their homes. Once joblessness increases, public security is at risk. If you sit here as a legislator and you do not understand this, then you belong in another business and not in this noble house. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues on the other side of the house need to understand that when you begin to tinker with security services and you seek to get favored persons in positions and you disregard due process, you are deprofessionalizing an essential arm of the state. You are completely eroding public confidence in those who are responsible for public security. You simply cannot bring back the rotten potatoes, Mr. Speaker. Bringing back the rotten potatoes is spoiling the entire bag. So, Mr. Speaker, in 40 days plus, the government, which is tasked with enforcing public security, has done more damage to public security and has significantly damaged public confidence. I wish to remind this most honorable House on our achievements, that is the APNU plus AFC achievements. Time will not permit me to touch on every single one of our achievements made by the David Granger administration, but I hope that the other side of the House will continue on the path of progress and you will deliver the good life to the people which they deserve. Mr. Speaker, firstly, I would like to touch on the fire service. Between 2015 to 2018, the coalition government built 6 new fire stations at Karivaton, Melanie, Lethem, Onverwap, Madhya, and Mabaruma. We increased the human resource capacity of the fire service which resulted in women taking their rightful place as professionals within this organization. The fire service finally got the professional mobility they deserved under the coalition government. Mr. Speaker, this is the APNU plus AFC report card. We acquired 6 brand new high-capacity fire tenders, 4 state-of-the-art ambulances, 2 of the most modern water carriers. Mr. Speaker, these are functional and operational, distinct from the famous non-working water cannons of the PPP. We commissioned the most modern firefighting and rescue boat to satisfy our maritime needs of the emerging oil and gas sector. Now that Guyana has the second longest runway in the Caribbean, we have equipped the Chetty Jagan International Airport with all the latest firefighting resources, which are in compliance with international standards. Most importantly for the average citizens, we have reduced our response time in the events of fire and other emergencies by 50%. This is our legacy. It's a legacy of achievements. An A+ for the coalition, Mr. Speaker, and these are facts. These are not fluff. We have delivered on the good life. I now wish to turn to the prison services. Mr. Speaker, the vague language used in the budget to address the prison system signifies a lack of vision for this important sector. We see no effort in the budget to establish a long-term plan to reduce overcrowding or compliance with the human rights standards for the treatment of inmates. Mr. Speaker, I am struck by the fact that this section of the budget does not mention the words COVID-19 pandemic or public health crisis. And we see what is happening at Lusindan right now, Mr. Speaker. As is recognized all over the world, the prison population is ground zero in the fight against this disease. I hope the affected prisoners who have contracted the deadly COVID virus are given proper treatment, and all efforts are made to protect the other prisoners. We have seen no evidence in the budget of any efforts to provide adequate medical facilities or medical personnel to deal with the health risks which present themselves in the prison environment. This again is the APNU AFC report. We have rehabilitated and maintained all facilities. We have procured for the first time steel cells to house maximum security prisoners. We have commenced the upgrading of the Mazarudi prison to enhance its facilities and upgrade its capacity. There was the procurement of equipment to improve the safety of officers and inmates. We have ensured that the prison service recruited over 100 prison staff, including the provision of training of new and existing staff. We have also established a task force which has made a recommendation on the relocation of our prison from urban centers. Again, Mr. Speaker, an A+ for the coalition. Facts again, not fluff. Again, this is our legacy, a legacy of achievements. I wish to turn now to the Guyana Police Force. Mr. Speaker, despite the current regrettable state of affairs, the People's Progressive Party continues to treat public security as a national joke. The question begs, when will they get it, if they ever do? You cannot throw around a few dollars at this critical issue and think we will all be able to sleep at night. This budget addresses public security in language only benefiting of a party manifesto. While it is good that monies have been allocated to make our police men and women comfortable as they conduct and execute their duties, it falls short on the urgencies and plans that are necessary to move this organization forward. This is the deception, Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2020, and the deception which has become the hallmark of the PPP under its current leadership. You have inherited the coalition government's commitment to rehabilitate police stations, which means that you should recognize the value of strategic planning. Interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, again, the cover of this budget states protecting our people in a COVID-19 environment. Yet I did not discern any grand plans and proposals for our law enforcement officers to be protected in the midst of this pandemic. When the nation's health is endangered, it is a matter of national security. And above all, if the men and women entrusted with providing that security are not protected, we are not secured by any stretch of the imagination. Policemen and women are working under unsafe conditions. Where is the support from the government? It is certainly not in this budget. The PPP promised a 1-month bonus on the campaign trail and are now providing a 2-week fine change during this pandemic when they need financial support more than ever. Again, this is a betrayal. I urge my colleagues on the other side of the House to desist from this one-off fine change that borders on a simple token when dealing with the salaries of our hard-working law enforcement officers. They deserve the good life. This is why they increase the salaries. This is why we increase the salaries of public servants by 77% between 2015 and 2019 with retroactive tax-free salaries. I urge the men and women of the security sector not to be fooled by this 3-card trick. You are receiving a one-off payment with this wreck, which is being touted as a big payout. It is not a bonus. It is what Guyanese call a little stretch. You will recall the coalition government did not engage in handouts. We increased the salaries and the public sector received 12 months of that increase, and it remained permanently on their salaries. By the way, Mr. Speaker, the question begs, who is the Minister of Finance? If there is one, is it Mr. Ali? Is it Mr. Ed Jill, the Honorable? Or is it someone else? It is unheard of that a nation is without a Minister of Finance, a most critical portfolio. Mr. Speaker, while I'm on the subject of appointments, I wish to submit that the very appointment of the most honorable member Ben as Minister of Home Affairs is a clear signal to the nation on what the PPP intends to do. The most honorable member Ben, in his previous ministerial appointment, was known to go around Georgetown with a hammer and demolition guns. he picked up a certain name, and from his performance to date, it appears that he intends to continue in that vein in the security sector. Lord help us all. I urge the Honorable Member Ben not to dismantle any structures, but to expand on our structures. To dismantle what was built with best intents and purposes will be a disservice to the security sector. I also plead with the Honorable Member to read the Security Sector Reform Report and continue the good work started by the Granger administration. Mr. Speaker, on pages 54 and 55 of this D-grade budget presentation, there was a hasty attempt to address public security. Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that we understand that this is an emergency budget, the signs of what is to come for the security sector are not good. We have already seen the dangerous and unhelpful posturing of a serving minister of government inserting himself directly in the process of police investigation, an action unheard of in the history of governmental processes. And I take this opportunity to remind the members of the Ghana Police Force that their independence is guaranteed by the Constitution. Our policemen and women should not bow to political directorate. Do not, and I plead with you, do not reverse the professionalization of the force which was achieved by the leadership of President Granger. I now turn to the drug trade. Mr. Speaker, the move to dismantle the drug empire by the coalition government is well recognized locally, regionally, and internationally. We ensured that drug lords did not find any refuge. They had no friends in the coalition government. We allowed the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit to function independently. A local office for the DEA was established, and this has contributed significantly to the reduction in the drug trade after years of resistance from the PPP government. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow the dark days of the narco empire to return to our beloved country. If it pleases you, Mr. Speaker, I find it necessary to allude to a very sordid development which has sent chills down the spines of the collective population. It appears, Mr. Speaker, that after 40 days of the People's Progressive Party back in office, it seems that the drug boys are back in town and back in business. Encouraged that a coalition no longer controls the state apparatus. The recent discovery of aircrafts with dead bodies and cocaine in the Isano area sadly harks back to the pre-2015 narco state in which we lived in constant fear. Talk about legacy, and that's the legacy of pre-2015. Upon assuming office, the coalition read the Riot Act to the drug empire, and by our third year in office, the drug lords retreated. Mr. Speaker, the question begs, what has changed or what has occurred in the last couple of days to give them the confidence that they can land planes boldly in our communities with illicit drugs is on everyone's mind. The question begs, why are they so encouraged?
Honorable Member, to proceed with this same confidence, you will need an extension.
Comrade Speaker, I do hereby move that the Honorable Member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope for the sake of our people that this is not the beginning of the narco empire. I hope that this is not the beginning of the return to gunshots disturbing our peace or the return of the lawlessness of pre-2015. Mr. Speaker, I am supremely aware that the other side of the House will reject the idea that the drug empire felt comfortable whenever they're in office. If this is an unfair assessment, Mr. Speaker, I ask that they follow the governing methods of the Granger-led administration on these matters and prove me wrong. Give the Guyanese people hope, not gloom and doom. I ask the other side of the House to read the Collins report. This was a presidential inquiry. The Collins report details the findings which were used to guide policy. Mr. Speaker, the APNU plus AFC set the gold standard for how a government should signal to drug dealers that they are not in for games, and we send the strong signals. You cannot be everywhere to guard the vast areas of this country, but you can demonstrate by your actions that there will be serious consequences for those who breach our airspace to engage in illegal activities. I dare the other side of the House to follow our standard. Let there be condign actions from the highest level. Convince us that you have changed and you mean business. I urge this government not to revert to past habits and to allow the drug enforcement agencies to continue to operate independently. Do not interfere with their work. Mr. Speaker, the facts are irrefutable from 2015 to 2019 that crime has reduced significantly. Extrajudicial killings disappeared. Piracy was eradicated. We activated the 911 emergency centers. There was the installation and the operations of the new state-of-the-art 911 emergency system. In addition, citizens can send text messages to 911. We implemented the Citizen Security Strengthening Program. We also established the Command Smart City Center, which is operational and there for viewing. So rapists, drunk drivers, pedophiles, you're being monitored. Once again, an A+ for the APNU AFC coalition. We, the coalition government, work tirelessly to address fresh approaches to put the period of the troubles behind us. What we have witnessed in the last 40 days reminds us of the great national poet Martin Carter, as he said in his poem, "This is the dark tide, my love." Mr. Speaker, before I take my seat, I would like to say to the Guyanese people, do not fear, do not lose faith. The light will return. And as my colleague said, we will be back and we will be back. I thank you.